now live for CAT exam. Hi, welcome to Times Now Live. We would be discussing CAT exam today. The first session has already ended. Today we are joined by Mr. Gautam Bawa. He is the Principal Director BYJU'S and he's also the Vice President for BYJU'S Exam Prep. Good morning, Gautam. How have you been?
Hey, morning, Kanika. Been a great start to the day.
Wonderful. So I believe you wrote the exam as well.
No. So I'll be writing it in the third slot, but we have a team who's
Okay.
already gone and written it, and we've spoken to a lot of students as well. Yeah.
All right. So let's just start with how the first session was for CAT.
Okay. Yeah. So the good part was, ever since COVID, the pattern has changed. In 2020 it had 76 questions. In 2021, 66. This year, CAT stayed true to not changing the pattern. So it stuck to 66 questions, which was a relief, I think, to students. So there was no real surprise for those, venturing into slot one. However, there were a couple of surprises even in that. The breakup of 66, while it remained the same as 24 in verbal and 20 in DILR and 22 in quant. However, the 24 in verbal, especially in the verbal part, the RC remained at 16, but the verbal part, which used to have two questions on odd one out or odd sentence parajumble, that student might know them, that changed into something like a statement fill in the blank. That's a new type of question, which predominantly meant a paragraph was given, followed by a particular statement. And then the question was, where in the paragraph will the statement fit? So say the paragraph had 4 sentences. So will this statement that has been given fit before the first sentence, after the first sentence, after the second, after the third, after the fourth? Where will it fit? So it's a type of parajumble wherein the paragraph is given, but it's a statement that needs to be picked up and put in. So something similar has been seen in NMAT earlier. So this was a surprise for students for sure. So this was non-MCQ, which means there was negative mark, associated with this as well. So that would have been a surprise. And the second was in DILR, wherein last year in the 20 questions, there were 2 sets of 6 questions each and 2 or 4 questions. This year, it turned out that all 4 sets had 5 questions each. So, difficult for students to identify which sets to begin with. Last year, it was slightly easier that you could have gone to the 4 question set thinking, okay, this might be easier, let's start here. This year, all 4 or 5 questions. So you had to spend a little bit of time to decide which set to start off with. So I think these were the 2 places where students might face a slight hurdle. Overall, however, if I look at it from an LOD perspective, because I see that question coming up already, if I'm talking about it from a level of difficulty perspective, I would say verbal was slightly on the tougher side because a couple of passages were also not straightforward, and there were quite a few inferential questions as well. So, verbal was slightly tougher. Plus, with the first slot, there is always a slight disadvantage that you don't know what you're getting into. So normalization generally works out for slot one. DILR, I think the surprise of 5 questions, 4 sets of 5 questions each will also be there. So, a slight disadvantage for slot one, but it will help them in normalization again. So from a LOD perspective, I would say verbal slightly difficult as compared to last year. DILR more or less along the same lines as compared to last year. And quant probably slightly easier as compared to last year. Because the questions predominantly were easy. Arithmetic was about 8 to 9 questions once again. Most of the questions coming from topics like ratios and averages and percentages. So that is something that should help students. Geometry, there were 4 questions, but 2 of them were quite simple as well. So overall, I think students would not have been too worried once they got into the paper. Yes, a couple of surprises here and there, but for the students going in slots 2 and 3, nothing to worry about. Overall, paper is not very difficult, and there wouldn't be a lot of change in terms of marks as of now as compared to last year. Probably a couple of marks here or there.
Okay. So, for the remaining 2 slots, what do you think, what is it that students should be prepared for, given, whatever we understand from slot 1?
Yeah, so back your instincts, back the preparation that you've had till now. There is no real surprise out there. In fact, you've had way bigger surprises in your mock. So this is no big deal having 5 sets of 4 questions each. We've also experimented with that in BYJU'S Exam Prep with the mocks that we've given, and students would have taken that and they would be prepared for it. Also, in terms of the new type of question in verbal, many of you all might have already written NMAT or prepared for it, so there's nothing new there either. And this is going to be easier than the odd one out anyways. So odd one, the type of question that this new type of question is replacing, was already slightly difficult. So this is going to work out for you and be, slightly advantageous. Yes, since there is a non-MCQ and -1 associated with it, be slightly careful. Don't randomly go ahead and guess like you would have done till last year. In quant, once again, back, your preparation till now, arithmetic plus algebra is ruling the roost again. So if arithmetic and algebra are your areas of strength, just go ahead, identify the right type of questions and answer them. Keep one thing in mind: there have been a couple of questions reported, reportedly a couple of questions in profit and loss which was slightly lengthy to read. So if you see that a question is very lengthy to read, probably just leave that, because there's enough out there. There are 22 questions, 99 percentile doesn't generally cross net correct of 12 to 13 marks, 12 to 13 questions, sorry. So if you need 13 questions net correct, you can go ahead and attempt 15, 16 and still make a couple of errors and still get there. So 4, 5, 6 questions, if you leave, it's not really going to hamper your chances. So no need spending too much time on lengthy questions.
Okay, so we have our first question. What would be the expected cutoff for DLIR?
Okay, so cutoff is,
DLIR.
yeah, so cutoff depends on which college. So generally, most colleges look at it at 80 percentile. IIM Lucknow has it at 85 percentile. So I would say 80 percentile around a score of about 16 for sure, and 85 percentile around a score of 18, 19. So basically, if you can get about 6 questions net correct, you should be comfortably looking at an 85 percentile. Just to be slightly safer, probably 7 questions is what you can look at. So the way to do it is, I would say 1.5 sets if you're able to solve in a matter of 40 minutes and get those questions correct, 7 to 8 questions, you'll be very comfortable. You'll actually probably be knocking on the door to a 90 percentile with 8
Right.
questions.
Could we quickly just possibly look at the number of good attempts for verbal, DLR, and quant sections?
So I think we'll need a little bit more data for that. But basis the first impression, the way it's coming out, instead of saying good attempts, I'll probably go to a good net score, because it depends upon accuracy rate for every student. If somebody's accuracy rate is 100%, you can just attempt 10, get all right, and you're done with it. So I'll go with a net score perhaps. So let's look at a 90 percentile. The way, basis what we are hearing right now, a 90 percentile in verbal should be somewhere in the range of about 26 to 28 perhaps. In DILR, perhaps about 20, and in quant, once again, perhaps around 20. So if I just add these three, which is say 28 and 20, that's 68. I think 68 should be very, very close to a 94, 95 percentile. So probably around the 70s mark, you should be comfortably 70, 72 mark, you should be looking at a 95 percentile overall for sure.
Okay, we have another question over here. It's like, how can we avoid negative marking in today's paper?
Okay, I think focusing on accuracy, which is back your strength, don't experiment too much. Differs from section to section. I think verbal is a section where accuracy rates are generally slightly lower. So that's one place where I think the focus needs to be on quantum in terms of attempts rather than accuracy. But in DILR and quant, just back your strength. Even if you are attempting about 7-8 questions in DILR with close to 100% accuracy, that's good enough. That means 80 minutes, 7-8 questions. We're talking about almost 4-5 minutes per question. That's almost like 20-25 minutes per set. That's a lot of time, right? So you don't need to worry too much. Aram se. This, I think that's the mool mantra, which is just chill a little, be confident. Even if you picked up a set in the first 10 minutes, which you feel is incorrect, you're unable to solve, you still have 30 minutes for 2 sets. You still have 30 minutes for about 7-8 questions to get to a 90 percentile. That's still about 3.5-4 minutes per question. So do not experiment too much. Don't try to overreach. The aim shouldn't be, I have heard from my friend that, first lot was easy and he was able to do 15. So I will also do 15. Not needed. For all you know, his 15 or her 15 might have 5 errors, or his 15 could be in an easier, DILR paper as compared to yours, which was slightly more difficult. So don't try to compare it across slots. Don't worry about that at all. And in quant, once again, if you're getting about 8-9 questions which you're able to attempt with close to about 100% accuracy, once again, you should be knocking at close to about 90 to 93 percentile for sure.
Okay, and we have another one. This one is in the studio. It's could you give us the concepts used in the ILR sets?
Yeah, so predominantly there was LR. So there's not a lot of DI in today's CAT. Most of the sets revolved around logical reasoning. There was one particular set where percentages or percentage change need to be calculated, but it was logic based, not really DI based. Number based set was also there with respect to prime numbers. Addition was also there. There was a set on trains and this different stations that they go from different times. So that was another kind of set, which once again we've gone ahead and covered in mocks. We've seen it in ZAT in previous years as well. So no real surprises is all I'm going to state. Overall, it is completely along expected lines, and it was good to see a numbers based set, something that we've been focusing on a lot. In terms of what could be expected in CAT, and if your concepts of prime numbers were good, then that particular set would not have taken a lot of time.
All right. So we would be wrapping up in another 5 minutes. We'll just take a couple of more questions.
Sure.
Can we? Okay. So what was the most scoring section in the today's exam? Is the next question that we have.
So once again, boils down to your areas of strength. I think every individual will look at it differently, but basis what we're hearing, I would say relative level of difficulty, the relatively easiest section turned out to be quant. Predominantly because there was absolutely no surprise. Verbal had those two questions as a surprise, DILR as a pattern change, 5 into 4 as a surprise. Quant had no surprises at all. And utilizing options is something that we've been hearing helps students a lot. So keep an eye out for the options, look at the options, and arithmetic and algebra once again is something that is going to come and help you out.
All right. I'll just ask a quick question for our audience who would be joining us a little late. So this is for slot 1, which we are talking about. In your experience, Gautam, how does the slots change? Do they remain with the same pattern of difficulty for different sections, or do they jumble that as well?
Yeah. So the pattern overall will remain exactly the same. In terms of level of difficulty, once again, it changes every year is different. So, very difficult for me to turn around and predict which slot will be easier and which won't be. But, if I were to just go ahead and place a bet, and this is just if because I'm a betting man more than anything else, I would say generally slot 2 doesn't throw up any sort of issues because it's generally the moderate slot. Supposedly the easiest, and slot 3 is where certain surprises with level of difficulty come. I myself am writing slot 3, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen. But yeah, personally speaking, I think it will not change a lot at all. And even if there is a slight change, normalization is something that the IIMs always do. So I think slot 1 always has a slight disadvantage because any surprises that come up, they are uninformed about it. Slot 2, slot 3 students already know about the surprises that are going to come, like you've just discussed in verbal and DLR. So they will go in prepared. Slot 1 would have spent about a couple of minutes in verbal and 2 to 3 minutes in DLR, 5 minutes overall in that paper, which is about 3% of the paper, 3 to 4% of the paper in, just accepting the surprises. So I think there's a little bit of scaling up that will happen in slot 1 for sure. But slot 2 and slot 3, don't expect any surprises. Don't go in with preconceived notions. Even if I've gone ahead and told you slot 1 easy tha quant mein, ab ye nahi ki easy hai, mere ko zyada karna hai. It might be slightly difficult in your slot. So it's okay. Please don't go in with preconceived notions. The only advantage that you have at this point in time is be comfortable with the pattern and the new type of question. That's it. Other things for slot 2 and slot 3, don't keep in mind at this point in time. Just back all your preparation and your instincts.
Another question that we have, we'll just take 2 more questions. Level of difficulty we've already discussed earlier in the session. Just the question as to how many questions should I attempt to get around 80 percentile?
So if I look at it from a sectional perspective, I would say 80 percentile in verbal shouldn't be more than say about 22 to 23 marks. So probably a net correct of 7-8 questions should get you there with ease. In quant, 80 percentile, once again, according to me, will not cross about 16, 17. So net correct of 5-6 questions. And in DILR, once again, probably if you do one full set in DILR, which is 5 questions, 15 marks, you'll be close to an 80 percentile, probably somewhere around 75, 77. So one more question of the second set, that means 6 questions, you'll surely get to an 80 percentile. The advantage this year in DILR is going to be if you're able to solve one complete set. Unlike previous years, one complete set was a 70 percentile. This year, one complete set might actually take you to a 75 to 80 percentile. So that's something that is going to work to your advantage.
Wonderful. All right. I think that is all the time that we have. One quick advice before we sign off for the day, and you also go ahead for your exam.
Same mool mantra, like I always state, the mentality in the hall, irrespective of how things are going, is that I'm backing my instincts and backing all the preparation that I've done. The mentality needs to be that you need to stay as positive as you can be. Doesn't matter if within the first 10-15 minutes of any section you feel that things aren't going your way. You still have enough time to make up. So take a sigh of relief, take a breath, and just get back to what you're doing overall. And no surprises. So go in with the strategy that you already have. You don't need to change anything. Everything that you'd worked for till now, things are as per plan. Just put your best foot forward, and I'm sure come the response sheet and the results, there'll be a huge smile on your face.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Gautam. All the very best to everybody who joined. This would also be available on our website, timesnownews.com. So all the best to all who have appeared for the exam and the one who would be appearing for the next two slots. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks.